to another episode of Hiding Behind the Pages with Elite Speakers. I'm your co-founder, Talk to Tracy Brooks.
And I am your co-founder, Chikeitha Owens.
And we would like to encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, go and follow us on Facebook at Elite Speakers Prep Series, ESPS. And be sure to let us know if you have a book to sell or a story to tell. Welcome back to another episode of Elite Speakers. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here today with the awesome author, S.D Booker. He is a father, a husband, speaker, a mentor, and a published author. A toast to the men. He is dedicated to uplifting and building and leading men to be great pillars of their community. As he writes a toast to the men as a therapeutic exercise, and it ends up being a gift to the men and women of all walks of life. Without further ado, give us a moment to just say hello to Mr. Author S.D Booker. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, and thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. It's good being here. Thank you.
Hello
Thank
and
you for
welcome.
joining us.
My pleasure.
So, Mr. Booker, we know that you are a writer. You authored A Toast to Men, which sounds like it is an awesome book, and we definitely got to get our copy of that and support you in what you're doing.
Certainly.
And you share with our listeners how you came upon writing that book. I know that you've also shared some about how you endured some trials or some pains that led you to even write the book.
Right.
Share with us how that came about.
Right. Certainly. Well, I go to the beginning. I've always had the gift of writing, and I didn't use that gift for a number of years. Like many people, you get distracted with working and living life and just the day-to-day routine of trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat on that gift for quite a few years. Fast forward 4 years ago, I started going through I would say a brutal child custody case. And man, it just got really tense. I lost a lot of my savings going through this case, lost my job, lost my car. I was going through it. And as a release, I had all this tension building up. And I needed a release. I started writing. And I wrote it from a perspective. I just really had to take a deep look and see what role did I play in all of this to get to this point. So it's not a book bashing women. It's not a book that's emasculating men. It's a accountability book, a book about self-discipline, a book about taking charge, planning, being accountable. And I came from a perspective of not being victimized, but looking at myself and saying, how did I get to this point? What role did I play? How could I have avoided it? And how can other men avoid certain things? But I was talking to men, but ironically, many women have purchased the book, and they're like, this book is for women also. Although, because the way I wrote it, it's not a bashing book. It's not a victimized book. It's motivating. It's about accountability, self-discipline, and chasing your dreams. And so each chapter, there's 8 chapters. Each chapter is a drink. There's a short background about different drinks. But then I go to the real life story about those drinks or some story related to those drinks. And then I dive into the real life situations in each chapter or each drink. And yeah, it's been doing well. I'm really pleased with it.
Wow, that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. And I just love how it just sounds like it's a self-examination, and it's pushing people to examine themselves and their choices and not play the victim role and the consequences that they have to face based upon the choices that they have made throughout life. So I think
Exactly.
that's awesome. That is so powerful.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
So in writing your book, I heard you say that you decided to take a drink and base it around the story or base the story around the drink. is that a correlation to things that happen with this chapter, or is that just your plot of the story to use the drinks? Like, give me an example of a
Right.
chapter in a drink that actually applied to a situation.
Right. Well, that's a good question. That's a great question. I did have, well, I don't have a drinking problem. If that's what you're asking. Well, I did have one episode when I was going through that where I was intoxicated, and I gave an example of how if you don't vent properly and release stress properly, alcohol doesn't help. Alcohol is a revealer. It will reveal whatever mood you're actually in. They say a drunk doesn't lie, right? So it will whatever guard you have up while sober, alcohol will bring out what's really going on with you. And so I did have one episode like that I do express in the book. I do tell that story. But the other side of that question, that's why it's such a great question you asked. It is a theme, and I did want to make it attractive to men. I did want this book to be attractive to men. There's I guess a stereotype, maybe real or not, that men don't read. So I wanted it to be appealing to men. So that's why the cover, you have different shades of hands toasting. And one of the hands is even a guy with a water bottle. Everyone doesn't drink. So I wanted to be clear that this isn't about liquor. It's deeper than that. And so I'll give you one example. I tell a story, I believe this is drink 2, conflict resolution. So I don't know if you ladies remember when there was a situation with a professor, black professor, and a cop that had an altercation. The professor, world renowned, had come home from a trip from Africa or China. I gotta look again. And he couldn't get into his home. Neighbors thought he was trying to break in. They didn't recognize him. They called the cops. He and the cop have an altercation. Gates, Professor Gates, he ends up going to jail for the night. This became a big thing. President Obama had just come into office, and so he brought these 2 gentlemen to the White House to speak with him and Vice President Biden. I don't know if you remember that story. And so I tell that story, and then I dive deeper on how that could have been resolved and how we can take lessons from that story. That's just one example. Drink 6, love is law. I talk about prohibition and how prohibition was a law, but there was no love behind that law. A lot of people died from alcohol poisoning, and it just became very, very ugly during prohibition. And so I dive into that. I dive really deep into love and how to love responsibly. Not only drink responsibly, but love responsibly. We have a lot of situations where, for the most part, I think men can get aggressive with women when in love, and they're not loving responsibly. Women do it too, but we hear a lot of tragic stories where men freak out and hurt women or kill women or hurt the kids because the relationship is over. So I go into how to love responsibly and love in a principled way, and not so much in a emotional way, but love in a principled way where respect is there. So if the relationship does end, you can move on. It's not the end of the world because you love that woman in a principled way, and you didn't put all your heart and feelings into it, and you're off balance. When people are in love, a lot of times they're off balance, and they're not centered. And sometimes when the relationship ends, you hear some tragic stories. I think just recently at Texas A&M Commerce, young guys shot 2 women, 2 sisters. Probably a case, and a child, probably a case where she didn't want him anymore. He couldn't handle it. He's off balance. He's not centered. But if he had loved her in a principled way, in a respectful way, he could have moved on. Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I like the way you bring it in to bring the men in, sort of like, come on, guys, let's have a drink and talk about it. Let's get it out there. Let's vent it out so that we're not a ticking time bomb just walking around waiting to go off on someone. So I
Right.
really like that principle that you use, and the fact that you use a drink to go along with it. It really, I think it
Yeah.
will draw the men in, and I think that's a great concept. And you brought up a lot of great points in regards to how things can just escalate without caring and thinking about the love of the law of love. And here we
Yes.
are today, dealing with those same issues over and over again, and we see it every day in the media. Again, I saw that same story where he killed his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, and sister, and it's like maybe if he had someone who went through that same experience talk to him and say, man, she don't want you anymore. This is how you need to deal with this. Deal with it responsibly, and not where you can end up losing your whole life behind bars and then someone else losing theirs. So I
Right.
thank you for opening up the conversation or even presenting the conversation in a warm way for men to want to step to the table and have that talk.
Yes. Yes. It's a talk that needs to be had that we don't talk about. And I think the problem, I think, starts when we're young. Very young, we're taught to dote on women, dote on girls. Valentine's Day is coming up. You got 5, 6-year-olds trying to figure out what they're gonna give young girls. So I mean, that's ridiculous. And I remember being like 6 or 8, and my mom had a friend come down from out of town to spend the night. I had this little girl I liked. The lady that was visiting left a diamond ring on my mom's dresser. I took that ring and gave it to that girl. I was like in the kindergarten. That what, right? That is not right. Now never would a 6-year-old girl think about giving a 6-year-old boy a watch or a ring. That's not even in her mind. But boys are taught to give these things at a young age. And, yeah, and that's okay, but it has to be balanced and done in the right perspective, though. Yeah, the right context. Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask you, I think that is, you're so right about that. You know, boys are taught a lot of different things. So are girls, a lot of at a young age. And it's kind of instilled, you know, through the upbringing from the grandma and whatever parents are raising at that time. And so we kind of hold on to those traditions and those values. And a lot of times it's not good. You know, we call it stinking thinking. And we on to those negative values, and we bring those things into our own family. And so I think it's important, you know, with your book and everything that you're sharing in there, that we're able to balance those things out, that we're able to hold on to those values that are positive and effective in our lives. But that stuff that's not effective, those things that are inappropriate, we need to get rid of those. And we think just because grandma said it, you know, it's written in stone. And a lot of times it's not. A lot of the stuff that we were taught is just, it wasn't good. Some things were, but everything was not. But as I was reading over your some of the information that you shared with us, can you share with us how you talked about how your book not only can reach the corporate men, but that it can reach the drug peddlers, it can reach the general everyday people that, you know, may have grown up, you know, in the area of Pleasant Grove where you grew up from, that may be in a situation right now, maybe where you were, you know, and struggling right now just to make ends meet, struggling right now and just trying to make it from day to day, dealing with losing a car, losing their family, and maybe even out there selling drugs. You know, there's a lot of young men out there right now that are going through that and have just given up and think that that's the only way.
Right.
Share with us how your organization and what you are doing may be able to help them find their way.
Right. Great question. Well, I'll touch on the book and then I'll go back to what I'm doing in the organization. Chapter 2, Leaders Lead. Two double shots of rum. That's the subtext.
I love it.
Yes. Leaders League. So I do tell a story about my ex-brother-in-law. He had an episode. I changed his name, but I guess he'll know who he is now. But yeah, I changed his name. But then I go in later and tell a story where I didn't lead properly. And speaking of young men, I tell a story about how I was married young. And I got married like 21. She was 22. She's pregnant. I don't have a trade. I don't have a degree. I'm just taking a job here, taking a job there, just trying to survive. Ended up getting into drugs. Never been a user, but I was a dealer, and that can be equally as bad. And so I got into dealing drugs. Eventually got caught. Took a plea deal and did 6 months in jail. And during that time, I was the breadwinner. During that time, she got evicted, had to move with my mom. And, I lost sense of time. I'm just doing the time, just trying to get out of there. And one day, the guard, hey, Booker, pack your stuff. He didn't say stuff, but pack your stuff. And a guy, the cellmate, said, hey, man, you're going home. So, okay. So I called my mom and say, hey, I don't know what's happening, but I think they're releasing me. She goes, well, it's a good thing you called because her water just broke. Wow. So I got released. As soon as I got released, went through processing, took about 2-3 hours. I come out of loose stereo. My mom's out there with my wife. She wasn't my wife at the time, my girlfriend. Pregnant. And we head straight to Charlton Methodist. She delivers my girl. And so I tell that story, and it's just amazing how God and the universe works. But from that day forward, I said I would never deal with drugs. I don't care how hard it got. I would never deal with drugs. I think I was spared. I was given a slap on the wrist, and I was shown favor to be able to witness the birth of my child. And so that could have been, I dive into how that could have been avoided. I didn't have a plan. So when you don't have a plan, you become desperate and you do desperate things. I was not self-disciplined. I had no business shacking with a woman, had no business getting a woman pregnant. I couldn't take care of myself properly at the time. So we get in situations a lot of times because we have no plan, we have no self-discipline, focus, or structure. And that's how we end up in situations. And so we have to look at ourselves and say, how did I get in this situation? Stop blaming everybody else. Because I used to blame her. I used to say, you said you were on birth control. You were not on birth control. But no, I have to be responsible of my body, my seed, and I can't give anyone else that power. The fact of the matter is women get pregnant. So if you don't want a child, do what you have to do to avoid that. Protect yourself. And so, for a while when I was young, I used to blame her, but I had to really take a deep look and see I wasn't responsible. I didn't take control of my body, my own self. And I don't think men are taught that at a young age, to take care of their bodies, that their bodies are special, to protect your seed. That's something we're not taught. And so I can't just complain about what I wasn't taught, what I didn't know. When I know better, I should do better. And you only know through reading, research, and knowledge is power, of course. And so with this group I'm with, the men's brunch, that's what we do. We tell real life stories, and there's a lot of brothers that can relate to that story. And so we try to give them the cheat sheet on how to avoid certain things, how to excel in life. And what I try to get young men to see, to be selfless and stop being selfish. So 3 things I focus on, what we should focus on managing in this life. And this is what Jesus focused on in all his parables. He focused on managing your time, your talent, and your treasure properly. That's what Jesus always focused on: your time, your talent, and your treasure. How are you managing those? How are you building up equity in those 3 things? And then how are you giving back to the world? That's the bottom line in this life. That's when we die, we got to give an account. How did we manage our time, treasure, and talent? That's it. That's it. And what was our why? What did we give back, and why did we give it back? Was it rooted in righteousness or ego? That's it. And so yeah, that's my message to men. And this message can apply to anybody, women or men, but I kind of target men because I can relate to men. I'm a man, so that's who I talk to.
Wow.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Definitely calls for a double shot of rum.
I know. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I'm over here about the.
Well, you just took the question out of my mouth about how do you relate to building the equity back into your time, into your treasure, into your energy back into giving back to the men. And you kind of explain that, which is very powerful that you even think on that level of sharing and spreading the word of let's just be balanced as men, because a lot of times men are so off balance, so are women, but men are so off balance because they really don't have that guidance. And so for that, I commend you for even creating something for the men to pick up and read and self-examine themselves so that they can make a better, life for themselves, their children, their families, and the society as a whole. So thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
So,
And
Keith,
Mr.
do you have
Booker,
any other questions? Because he just
I know he just got me over here. I'm like, wow, I love it. You have an event coming up soon. You want to share with our listeners a little bit about your upcoming event?
Yes, thank you. March 28th, we have an event coming up. It's going to be at the Lofts. March 28th, we're going to have mingling cigars, free cigars, cocktails, a lot of wisdom and knowledge being given and shared and building. So everyone's welcome to come out. There will be women there. Actually, a woman, Jade Tiller, she is the founder of the Men's Brunch. And so that's extraordinary that a woman saw the need and has the heart to try to build back into men. And so there will be women there. The women will be catering to us this day, to the men this day, the Men's Brunch. And it's going to be a huge event, and everyone's welcome to come out. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that information. And that is a powerful testimony that you have all the way around. I'm just still blown back by some of the, intricate parts that you shared in the stories and real life current events that are going on applied to your book. So thank you again for creating such a dynamic tool for men to have as a resource that they can go back and, refer to throughout their lifetime, because there's a lot of young men, me raising a son, there's a lot of young men who do not have that correct guidance. And as a single mom, I try to tell my son how to be careful with women and what to do. But here you put it in a book. So it's like now I have a reference tool. I can say, hey, you need to go and read this book. So again, I think that's a very powerful tool that you created for the masses.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely had to be very transparent and honest in the book, because people can see through walls, and if you have a barrier up, and if you're not being honest. And so I had to pour my soul into this book. And there's other stories that are very transparent, and I had to do that. I had to be loving. I had to give the love, and I couldn't be worried about being judged or it being picked apart. So yeah, I opened myself up. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Booker, for joining us here on Elite Speakers, and we will make sure to share your contact information to our viewers so they can contact you and be able to participate in your upcoming event. So we definitely will do that for you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, ladies. It's been a pleasure. I'm excited. I'm excited knowing you two ladies, and I really respect what you're doing. This is huge. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get out of here, Mr. Arthur Booker, is there anything that you would like to leave with our listening audience? Any nuggets that you'd like to share?
I'll reiterate, we have to get back focused on first being alone, solitude. It's okay to be an introvert for a while, to focus on your time, talent, and treasure. Build that up, and then you become selfless. So be selfish for a time, build up equity, and then be selfless, give back. And that's what it's all
Wow.
about. Yes.
I like that. It sounds like a pain to purpose process right
Yes.
there. Amazing. Well, again,
Yes.
we'd like to thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
time out of your busy schedule to join us today. I'm sure our listening audience will appreciate this interview. And again, y'all, thank y'all for joining us for another
Thank
episode
you.
of Hiding Behind the Pages, supporting men.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Wow, what an amazing interview that was with Arthur Booker. I'm just like blown away by his
Yes.
um just the way he presents his stories with the drinks and all of that. It just really let me know that he's in tune with himself as a male, and he really knows how to reach out to the other men in the community.
Yes, I just enjoyed him a lot. I enjoyed how, he shared, just his love for just being a leader and knowing the mistakes that he's made throughout life, but not just knowing it, but being able to take all of the things that he learned and now apply it to be able to help other men. And I just think that that's just awesome because we don't have that. We don't
Absolutely.
have that, and we need that in our communities. And so, I think that his book, everybody needs to go out and get it. And again, that is a toast to men, a toast to men. So it sounds like an awesome book.
I love it. I love it. And I really appreciated him coming and sharing that. And I like what he said about building his equity and his time and his talent and
Mm-hmm.
his shoulders. Like men really need to adhere to that calling, because if they did that, they would be able to give more back into the community, such as himself,
Yes.
very, very powerful.
Yes. And Tracy, that reminds me of Miss Adele Foster when she shared with us about how, the graveyard is full of billionaires because people are taking their talents and their treasures to the grave.
Yes.
I just think that, what Mr. Booker shared just highlights that even more, to show us that we got to use our talents and our treasures and our time wisely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow. Powerful testimony.
Mm-hmm.
I hope y'all enjoyed it. I surely enjoyed it, Chikeitha.
Yes, I
Thank
did.
you again for taking time out your busy day to join us together on these Hiding Behind the Pages. It's been one. It's been fun.
Yes, I enjoyed it too. And we just thank you all for joining us once again on Elite Speakers Hiding Behind the Pages.
Bye.
We would just like to thank you again for joining us with Hiding Behind the Pages. We hope you have enjoyed this episode, and we would love for you to like, share, and subscribe on our Facebook at Elite Speakers Prep, ESPS, and on our YouTube channel at Elite Speakers Prep.